Good evening and welcome to the May instance of the Southern Fried DNN user group. We are excited today with a full house here internal in Mooresville at the Envisionative offices. We've got a round table of folks in front of us ready to not only participate but present as well. I'm very excited today because we do have Andrew Hoefling in the house. He has some exciting things to go through with us, and I'll go ahead and say my moniker for the evening is that we have, I don't know how well you see this in the video here, but should line up at the back of my head here, is that tonight we are proud to be hosting the DNN Superman. We have the new Superman of DNN here tonight to talk about a Herculean load of structure, content, information that has been knocked out seemingly overnight by Andrew and released. And so we are going to be diving into that, and it's going to be exciting.
I really thought you were talking about somebody else there. I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything. I was like, the Superman. Are you talking about Clint?
No, I built you up too much?
No, he's being a super fan.
Yeah. I show up at the concert.
So as we do normally in Southern Fried meetings, we're going to jump into community announcements and events, and then we will come back around to our primary presenter, Andrew Hoefling, who's going to really share with us a lot of the information that's been blogged and put out over the last couple of nights, really, for DNN, Dependency Injection, and .NET Core, and the path ahead. So let's talk a little bit about things coming up. Well, one of which is we have David that is heading out to DNN Connect here shortly. That is the beginning of June. That might as well be tomorrow. That's right around the corner here. Speaking about tomorrow, when do you actually leave, David?
I leave on Tuesday.
See, there you go.
Yeah, go do my little tour, and have some fun out there.
All right, all right. So we'll be looking forward to some. Some highlights of DNN Connect and some information that you bring back to us from there. Anything you want to say about DNN Connect? I mean, it is still open for registration.
It's not too late. Not too late.
It's not too late, and you can still get plane tickets that are pretty decent.
In beautiful Switzerland, Chappery, Switzerland. So, find you a flight and get on over there.
All right, that's a pretty good introduction for it. I'll also mention that at DNN Connect, at the event, because I'm involved in this part, I'm proud and excited to say that we'll be having some announcements and some information released regarding DNN Summit when you're at Connect. That's our target date to be announcing some information. I can say that from the organizing committee that we have things like a keynote speaker locked down. We have some things that we are ready to release, including registration and call for speakers. So there's a lot of information that we're going to release there right around DNN Connect. So look forward to that. And everybody who has been to previous summits or anybody who hasn't been to a summit, we invite you down to DNN Summit this time in Orlando, February, the end of February, 24th and 26th in 2020. Anything else we want to say kind of about that? I know myself, I'm going to be taking family down and having a family vacation on one side or the other conference because I got to go to the new Star Wars land. So that's a big push for me in getting out.
Ryan, you left the meeting.
I left.
There's something going on with the internet.
Yeah.
Well,
The internet or the Wi-Fi?
well, this one was hard connected, and the join me meeting went black for about 2 minutes.
Oh. We're looking good here, so.
Looks like it's bringing me back in again. Boo. So during that,
Mike Schmelzer is. Pete says he can hear us this time, so.
Pete can still hear us? That's great.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, do you want to take back?
But you haven't joined back.
But I'm still working on joining back. It says unable to reach the server. Do you want to take back presenter and you just bring up, and I'll post or mention things that we need to do?
Can you?
Well, I can.
I'm probably eating all my bandwidth with the stream box.
Yeah, possibly.
Does this always say, this ain't New York? We can't do all that. Streaming stuff.
Come on, man. I live out in the middle of nowhere and able to do
Now,
that.
you're up there, so you got plenty, you got homes. You're close enough.
Close enough. 5 hours close enough.
Well, so
Yeah.
while we're still on and trying to get back up visuals, DNN Summit is something we're excited about. It's time of year to start thinking about being a sponsor. If you are a DNN community, if you're a development partner, if you are a DNN partner, if you are a module vendor, please consider being a sponsor. This is your chance to become active and participate in helping put on community events like this and making
Yeah, I'm
things
trying to
happen.
get to the point where
the sooner that we get sponsors signing up, the sooner that we know we're in good shape for all the bells and whistles we want to put on the conference.
Tell me what you want up here, Lynn.
DNNSummit.org.
Can the people on the meetings, like, see? Because I'm getting a flash.
Right, he's about to present.
Okay.
Well,
Yes.
now I've got computer problems.
Technical glitch shot, right. All right, meeting canceled.
Yep.
So actually, everyone needs to be here in North Carolina to see the presentation.
There you go. All right. See, every now and again, something happens like that. Makes it clear that you can get online, but the best seats in the house are in the house.
Well, worst case scenario, we'll still have it all recorded on the Twitch stream.
Just with no pictures.
Oh, I'll have the pictures.
Oh, okay.
Because you record it all from here, yeah, and uploads it.
We need to reboot the router.
I think
That's probably why it's running. That's probably
We
why
don't want to do
it's
that. We'll be
a lot
waiting a while.
of
the system is
wait and
down.
see.
I'm good now.
System.
I think it's
Yeah.
resending like
I'm good now.
meeting.
Go ahead and swap over presenting.
Oh, okay. All right. You're not in there.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
out.
next time you gotta bring your.
So how am I going to swap it over then?
No, he was saying put it back to you.
I have presented.
Oh, you are right.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm good.
Sorry. Okay.
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
We're already on the hotspot.
Okay, so gathering back up again. Next thing after DNN Summit, if we didn't have anything else to go on to for DNN Summit, we were going to talk next about the community blogs. So bring up DNN Software/Community Desk blog. And next after that, we'll have the digest and this site called MB Quick Site. Okay, so Clint, let's pass it to you for some of the community updates. We've had releases, we've had a lot of blog activity, a lot of new information coming out. If you want to kind of start with the community blog and then we'll head to the digest.
Yeah, so, I mean, we have a lot of activity on the blog. So I guess the first one we should mention, but not quite steal the thunder, is that Andrew has posted a lot of blogs, not necessarily on the DNN blog, but on his blog, which you should definitely
We'll come to it in a minute.
check out. Mitchell Sellers has also turned into a blogging machine as of late, which I think is good because as we go through change and transition, communication is important, right? So it's good to see all the strategy and vision. Now around May the 4th, the Star Wars fans and Metler, he does this every year. Have y'all noticed that? Like he
I did not know that.
Yeah, so May the 4th. So there's been some Too Sexy stuff that has Too Sexy content that has been released, and there are lots of blogs about that. Mr. Veladas continues to post the tag meeting notes, which is a thankless job. So Daniel, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Notes and posting all that. And then today, Stroll posted a blog with the DNN Hangout video where they're interviewing the one and only Five Guys superfan, Johnny Gregory. Talking about consulting, sales, and community. I have yet to watch that. But I'm going to. And then again, Mitchell posted another one today, just about the journey essentially to .NET Core. So we've had a bunch of those blogs. I did send a DNN Digest out last week, and Poindexter cut it close on his partner shout out, giving me the content.
I'll try and do better.
At the last end, yeah, you got my email, right? So yeah, I just featured some of these blogs, featured the previous Hangouts, and then some of the recent OSS open source extensions, such as the 260 stuff, and David himself has released a lot of NV QuickSight updates shared lately. And do you want to talk about some of those investments?
Yeah, probably the highlights are just that now it supports.
We're not screen sharing. Peter just mentioned in the chat.
We're not screen sharing?
No.
We aren't screen sharing.
But it's not showing up here.
Oh my goodness.
It's not showing up
recording
in the chat.
I got a black screen.
All right. Now we're
There we
screen
go.
sharing again. All right.
Oh, there it goes. See it over here.
Thank you, everybody.
About that. Thank you. Yeah, probably the highlights of this are that, and I probably should just go to the GitHub so you can see the releases. All of the releases now for version 8 to the recent releases are now pulled dynamically from the GitHub repo. We're no longer maintaining a separate list of the releases and having to manage that manually. Also, you have the ability now to see the latest release candidate if one has been released since the last release of the platform, official release, so you can turn that feature on and off. And those are probably the biggest highlights now.
And we talked about it a little bit at the last SoFri, but I appreciate in that it's not hard to install and test and do setup work for a release candidate. However, the fact that it's now built into NV QuickSight makes it even easier for you to set it up and spin one up very quickly. And that goes right along with the help request that was out in either the last meeting or the one before that, where Mitch was saying that as we put out these release candidates, we want help. And if you aren't a developer, if you aren't someone who's into code, but you use DNN, we could use your help regularly doing some testing on what you care about in those release candidates. Make sure you appreciate the change that's been made and it hasn't broken something else you use all the time. Just getting more eyeballs on that release candidate helps us make a better product all the time along the way. So David here including this in NV QuickSight just makes it easier for people to spin it up and try it out.
Yep. And thanks to everybody that's been giving feedback out there about the project. So the user experience is getting better and better all the time due to valuable feedback from the community.
Yeah, and so I think we should also probably reiterate the call for testers. That has been a common theme in the technology group, and that is when we say call for testers, that's the technology group's working hard to come out with releases of the software, and what they're asking for is when they're at the state of it being a release candidate, when it's not final, but it's about to be, they want people to test it. And it's not like you have to know how to code or do anything. It's like you just download it and then install it and try to like create a page, add a module. If you know how to upgrade, you can try to upgrade.
Do the things you normally do.
Typical things. David has pulled up a blog where he has essentially outlined things you can do to help testing. So like if you're listening to this replay, or if you're here live and you want to be involved but you don't have a ton of time to spare, then just help test release candidates. Just download them, get you a couple steps. David outlined like 10, and it's things that you typically do. Add pages, and if you notice anything that looks odd or like it's wrong, then just report it. And that's really all we're asking people to do, because helping test will prevent a release coming out and then there being issues and then the tag group having to like pull the release or update it quickly. So I just wanted to reiterate that. But I think that's all I've got. Other than we did give DNN some love at Build.
I was going to say, you visited Microsoft Build and were, forgive me, where was this located?
Seattle.
All right, so you went up to
Seattle. It was a big deal.
You went up to Seattle and you were a booth babe.
Yeah, I was booth babe always.
Oh, he was on TV, man.
Actually,
it was on Channel 9.
Actually, I was the John Galloway stunt double. Sometimes I was turned around, like, pointing at the monitor, and people walk by and like, "Hey, John," or be some big Microsoft.
Yeah.
Then they look at me and they were like, "No, you're not John." And then when we were both there, the same guy is like, "Big John would have done." But anyway, what they're talking about is, so on the last day, so Microsoft live streamed the entire conference, all the way from the keynote sessions to walking around, interviewing people. And on the last day, they had a segment that was, for the .NET Foundation. And John Galloway is executive director of the foundation. Beth Massey was a board of directors member, and Phil Hack is a board of directors member, and they were all there, but Galloway had to fly out early, so they were like, Clint, you can jump on the panel with us? Okay. And so they felt sorry for me, so I did, and I basically said, hey, I'm Clint, I'm going to be in it, and then I just sat there.
We've talked about often that as a member of the .NET Foundation now, DNN is a good example of an open source community benefiting from and using the features and benefits that we get from the .NET Foundation, because we wouldn't be able to do some things without it. And so you kind of were a spokesman for how this works. Why is it supposed to be here?
Yeah, and like literally any of us at this table could have done that, but when you were there. Yeah, but when you're at the booth, you have these people that work at Microsoft saying, well, this is what the foundation does. And it's kind of one thing. But then when you have the other person there who says, oh no, we're actually living and breathing it, like we wouldn't be able to ship a release without the resources that we're getting, right? So it's kind of, this is how it works in theory, and this is the real life example.
Yeah, rubber meets the road. This is how it works in practice.
Well, you might not remember if you haven't watched the video. I was watching the video last night, and I thought you gave a lot of really good information of how it helps DNN go from where it was to how it's very community-driven now.
Yeah, so, I mean, I felt like I probably didn't, at least during that interview, but at the booth, definitely. I mean, because there even sometimes people would come up with questions, and they would say, they would just point them at me because, they had heard the spiel or whatever, but they know it, right?
We need to pick a copy of the video amongst your SoFri.
Yeah.
Well, it's up there, if you go to Channel 9's site, give me a link. I put it on my blog, too. I mean, if you just want the replay. But it really is, I mean, even because the .NET Foundation, they're kind of figuring things out as they go, right? Like, how can we, and you would be amazed at people that walk up to the booth and they're like, how can we help? Like, I mean, what can we do? Asking all kind of questions, from being like very.
You were John.
No, that was John. Yeah. That's the panel there. So that's Beth in the middle. Bill Hagen and Cecil Phillip is.
Describe who Beth is again. She's Beth Massey, right?
Yeah. So she works at Microsoft, and she's the marketing manager for the .NET platform. So she used to, write code and everything back in the day, but now she's more in marketing. So Microsoft started the .NET Foundation, but they never intended to run it as like just it's completely theirs.
Yeah.
They got it up off the ground. Then they pulled back all their resources except for one member, which is Beth. They appointed her as the lone Microsoft employee that's on the board of directors, and then everybody else is voted on. So Phil was elected there, and so she's a big community open source champion, and she's pretty I would say influential in the Microsoft world.
All right. Well, so we've kind of gone around with community-related events. Is there anything we've forgotten? Folks that are online, Daniel, anything that we need to announce or share that we might have overlooked or forgotten that's happened in the last month?
A lot of unready stuff.
A lot of unready stuff.
Actually, you made a release
working on a lot of small things, but there's nothing yet to announce. Coming up.
Okay. Keeping everybody remembering what it is that Daniel does in these older core modules that were put out to pasture. He's bringing them back in, dusting them off, and making them better than ever. So Daniel is doing I wouldn't say thankless job, but we thank him every single time we talk to him because he's doing awesome superhero work.
Yeah. Well, in the recent ones, there's two updates. One is the vendors banners module, which is now templatable, so you can make it responsive.
Yeah.
And the other one was Survey. Yeah, that got a totally revamp with nice graphs and stuff. Very nice.
Oh, okay. All right.
Kudos.
Kudos. Look forward to seeing whatever you're working on next. And
well, that wasn't me.
That was it. But no, you're still here.
It was Michael Tobish.
Yes.
Oh.
And if I can find the other guy, was a Spanish guy.
Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have kind of wrapped up community, and we'll come back around to talk about some things as reminders when we finish off our session. But it's time for us to move to our main presenter. What you might do, David, is bring up on screen andrewhoefling.com so that we can make a mention of both the domain name and the blog articles that were posted here recently.
Whose screen are we looking at? Because we're looking at ND QuickSight.
I see it over here.
Yeah, it's been there the whole time.
I think you're behind.
Oh, okay, well, then it may be.
Yeah.
All right. So scrolling down just a hair there, David, we're getting down to...
A bigger hair?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have several blog posts, which when I mentioned they were posted just the other day or last night, it really has been the last few days that most of these have shown up.
There's been a post since Sunday, one every day this week.
That's what I've heard. There's going to be one every day for the week, and that there's a lot of powerhouse information coming out here. When we were talking about you being down, we had a couple of ideas of what you might present on. I can't imagine that you planned this 2 months ago or more. This seems like it has been a sudden push of some incredible ideas. And okay, so let's turn it over to you and have you kind of present and describe what we're doing. We got blessing from Mitch that this is in release. Yeah, in release. 9.4. Yeah. So this isn't just a concept anymore. This is actionable, and it's incredibly exciting.
All right, let's make me presenter, and hopefully it works.
So while you're swapping over and you're starting to get connected, I'll mention that one of the first things that I remember understanding that you were talking about, one of the first times that I met you 2 years ago, you were talking about Razor pages, and you were talking about different ways that we might conceive of getting base of DNN to move forward, and having a way that we can move forward over time, bits and pieces. And that was something that you were passionate about and explained in a way that I could understand what was being involved there. This is down that same path, and it's incredibly exciting to go from, I have some ideas, this would be neat, to now, this is solid.
Yeah, and I'll explain a little bit of I'll explain before I get started the backstory. We were going down this path of we want to migrate to .NET Core, and one of the ideas that came up a couple years ago was Razor page development is very similar to web development. And if we could get module vendors and module developers to migrate their modules to a Razor pages module, it would be a soft migration path to whatever a .NET Core version of DNN is.
A stepping stone.
Yes, a stepping stone. And we kind of tabled that to stabilize the platform, then we got back to it, and that's kind of how we got into dependency injection stuff. But before I go too far into the presentation, I just reintroduce myself. My name is Andrew Hoefling, for those that don't know me, and today I want to talk to everyone about DNN and dependency injection, and a little bit about how this matters for a .NET Core version of DNN. Woohoo! All right. So a little bit about me. I'm a lead software engineer at FileOnQ. I develop mobile apps for inventory management systems. I've done quite a bit with DNN. I'm a DNN MVP and a .NET architect. Some links to my Twitter, my blog, if you want to follow me and see what I have to say outside of this presentation. All right, so now I'm beginning my presentation. Just a little bit of history before I go into what dependency injection is. So we've been going down this path of what and how are we going to get to .NET Core. And we put together a couple proofs of concepts of using Razor pages, and just to kind of follow up on our conversation is there's, in web forms, you have your view and you have your code behind. And in Razor page development, which is a .NET Core way of building web apps, you have your Razor view, and there's not a code behind. Some people say it looks similar, but it's not a code behind. You have something called a page model, which is where your data is stored, and that gets included or injected into your view, and you can reference properties on that page model. And that's why the design patterns seem very similar to web forms, where web forms kind of muddied the water a little bit of where your view stopped and where your code behind ended. Razor Pages fixes that by saying there's a hard stop of between the two, and we have properties on our page model that can bind to our view. So we can start building well-architected web applications with that framework. And since it's very similar to web forms, that's been the migration path. So the other week was Microsoft Build, and they made the big announcement of .NET 5 and where that stood for some of the libraries that are on .NET Framework. And I was already working on some stuff for Razor Pages. There's actually a spec that I wrote on GitHub. If one of you guys that can go and share that in the chat for people that aren't aware of it. There's a spec that I put together. Here's how I see Razor Pages working. I've been working with many people in the technology advisory group about how we can get there based on things we've learned from my proof of concept that I built last year and things going on in the .NET community. Here's how I think we can get to Razor Pages, and here are the things we need to do to the platform. A big thing coming in .NET 4 is upgrading the platform to .NET Framework 4.7.2, which gives us access to dependency injection and other technologies that we want to leverage in the newer version of the framework that's going to help with that migration to .NET Core. And while working on some of this stuff, I found a circular dependency between a couple of our different module patterns. So there's a section of code that loads up whether you're doing a web forms module, whether you're doing an MVC module, or any of the other different module patterns. And it was using something called reflection. And the people that aren't hardcore programmers, reflection tries to load an assembly at runtime and then generate the object. So you don't get a lot of the caching mechanisms that are built into the runtime itself. You have to reload it every single time. So so say you have a page with 200 modules on it, and they're all MVC modules, you'd have to load that assembly using reflection and then load the classes, and none of that pipeline would get cached. So that was a really big performance hit that I was seeing with the platform, and I went out to fix it, and as going through and fixing that, I was able to add dependency injection into the platform. So that's my long-winded, here's how we got here. It's a question.
Oh, wait, so I can do a question, or you want me to hold it?
Oh, no, you have a question. I see you raise your hand.
So the dependency injection was a side benefit of work you were already doing regarding reflection.
Yes.
Reflection alone means what for the impact of the platform? Faster loading, better performance?
So reflection is a technique in C# that allows me to access code that I'm not necessarily supposed to access by the API. So
that you can create a cache or an equivalent, and then you've called it and it's loaded. You don't have to keep loading it.
Yeah, so what's happening with reflection is I reference the assembly by a hard-coded string instead of the object type, and then I can access methods in that assembly and objects in that assembly by that same mechanism. So I'm not really accessing it like I would, like the Hello World application that we have all been able to write, we'd say like console.writeLine. Well, instead of having those objects of console and the method of .writeLine, I would just have the hard-coded string of console.writeLine to access that method. And then I'd have to have a different parameter where I'd pass in the string. And so it gets very complicated because you reference stuff by these magic strings, and so it makes your code very brittle and slow. Mitchell Sellers did a couple of performance testing on it, and his metric said we should be getting about, I don't want to say 25 to 50 milliseconds improvement per module on the page, which can add up very quickly.
Yeah.
So and since I was doing some work with Razor Pages already, I already found a way to get dependency injection in. So I thought, well, we could fix some of these circular dependency problems with dependency injection if we looked at our code and figured it. So that's kind of the history of how we got to where we are right now.
Okay.
Is there any questions in the chat before
Not yet.
Jump in? All right. So what is dependency injection?
Oh no, you tell us.
I'll tell you. And before we can talk about what dependency injection is, we need to understand what a dependency is. So let's say you have a section of code in class A. So that's one of your objects in C#, and it uses the method on class B. Now class A now has a hard dependency on class B. It needs to know about class B, it needs to know the methods that are on class B, it needs to know everything about class B. So now there's a dependency there. Dependency injection tries to fix that. So there's something called the solid principles of object-oriented programming, and there's a couple different things in here to go talk about how to build well-architected applications, whether you're in C#, Java, or any object-oriented language. So there's and I'm not going to go through all of these, I'm just listing out for you. So we have the single responsibility principle, we have the open-close principle, the list-off substitution principle, the interface segregation principle, and the dependency inversion principle. And the one that I care about for today is the dependency inversion principle. And what that means is one should only depend on abstractions and not concretions. So in our example earlier, class A depends on class B. Class B is a concrete object, and we know everything about it. We don't want class A to depend on it anymore. What does that mean? I just jumped ahead of my slide.
You tell us.
Yeah, what does it mean? So to accomplish the dependency inversion principle, there's something called inversion of control, and there's 100 different ways to implement inversion of control. One of the classical examples out there is the factory pattern. Problems with the factory pattern is you need to know about the factory to create an instance of whatever object you're trying to resolve. Dependency injection removes the need for a factory completely. So an inversion of control, looking back at our same exact example, and this applies to any type of inversion of control. The goal is we have class A, and instead of depending on class B, we depend on interface B, which defines the contract. So it might say we have a write line method from our console example earlier. So interface B just says there's a write line method. So class A knows that we have a thing that can write a line. We don't know anything about it. We don't care anything about it.
We just know it can. And that's the thing.
And it doesn't matter if it writes it to the console. It doesn't matter if it writes it to a log. It doesn't matter if it writes to a database. We know that it writes. That's all we care about. So then, class B comes into the picture, implements the interface. Class A doesn't know that it's class B. It just knows that it's interface B. And that's the beauty of inversion of control, because when we get a little further along and we create class C, class C also implements interface B. Class A can have either class C or class B injected into it, and it doesn't matter which version it is, because all it cares about is using the contract that's defined in the interface. And that's why inversion of control is so powerful.
Because then multiple different things can provide the details of interface B, and you don't have to rely on one specific thing or the other, especially when there are multiple things that could be providing it.
But at any given point, what determines which one provides it?
Well, we'll get to that in just a second. Okay. So right now, I have a good question of how do we know, how is class C or class B getting in there? I don't know, right? That's where dependency injection is going to come in. So dependency injection is an implementation of inversion of control, which we just talked about. So let's say we have this example here. So this is not using dependency injection at all. This is just simple object instantiation. So we have class A here, and we have a private variable called class B, and I want to use that later in my code. In my constructor, I just new it up. But because we are newing up class B, I've now created a tight coupling between class A and class B. If I wanted to change class B to class C, then I would have to update my code and everywhere that class B is mentioned to be class C. So let's say you're building an application that is doing everything to a local database. And then your business and product owners come up to you and say, well, we need to use the cloud. Everyone's in the cloud. And I need to create a cloud provider instead of a database provider. Well, there's a very large difference between how you write stuff to the cloud versus how you write stuff to the database. And being able to have that all using an interface now simplifies your integration, because now you just update what's getting injected, and none of your other code has to change, as long as it implements the same contract. And that's why inversion of control is so important. So let's see how we fix this example here. So we would create class B and interface I class B. And I'm not highlighting exactly what the code is for either, because it really doesn't matter for this example here. We'll get into that a little bit later. But the important thing is class B implements whatever contract I class B is. And now, when I update my code, I have I class B. It gets injected through the constructor, and I will explain how this stuff gets injected a little bit later. But for now, let's just assume that it's getting passed in whenever class A gets instantiated. Now we have the injected object, and it doesn't matter what I class B is as long as it gets injected into the constructor. It could be any type of implementation. It could be writing to a database, it could be writing to a flat file, it could be writing to a cloud database. It doesn't matter. And that's where dependency injection really is going to come in and help us out with a lot of things. So, how does this work?
Well, no, you can tell us.
Magic! No, really. How does it work? The container. So, the container...
It'd be magic.
I thought I'd put that joke in there.
Beautiful, yes.
So the container. The container is a special thing that goes along with dependency injection. It's not always called the container in code, but the container is the thing that stores all of our registrations. So it's a mapping of abstractions to concrete implementation. So we said in inversion of control, we want to take our concrete objects and classes and create interfaces. And then we want to inject the interfaces so we don't care about the concrete implementation. So the container contains a mapping of the abstract interface to the concrete implementation. When we try creating something like our MVC controller, for example, it's going to try and resolve everything that's in the parameters. So to answer your question from earlier, how do we get those objects into the constructor? Our system, and I'm using that vague term because whether you're an MVC, whether you're doing Web API or the different module patterns of DNN, that system needs to be wired up with all of the classes that you want dependency injection in. So for example, in MVC and Web API, that uses the model view controller design pattern, so the controller is already a registered part of the container. So when it tries to create that, when DNN tries to create controller, words, when DNN tries to create the controller, it's creating it through the container, and then it's going to look in the parameters of that controller and pass in each of the registered parameters. If one of your parameters is not registered with the container, you're going to have a runtime error. So it's important that you don't pass additional parameters that are not registered with the container. So moving on to that, everything for the container should be registered during startup. You shouldn't be writing ad hoc code that gets run that registers different items in your container after the application is started. And there's new hooks built into DNN to allow you to do this very easily. As I was just mentioning, all of this stuff only works if all of the objects that are being passed into the constructor are registered as part of the container. So if we had, in our example earlier, if we had, let's say, a string parameter at the end, this would throw an exception because the container wouldn't know how to register a string. So it's best practice when you're using dependency injection to only include your abstractions in the constructor as parameters. Coming back here. So this is a design pattern that's used in most modern frameworks. It's very big in the Microsoft stack with ASP.NET Core. Newer versions of MVC and Web API and the .NET framework use dependency injection as well. And now it's going to be available in DNN for version 9.4. All the pull requests for it have already been merged. So what does this mean for .NET Core? The biggest thing that this means is there's a heavy use of the factory pattern throughout DNN, which means we still need to understand what the factory is for us to do anything, to get any of those objects. So now what we can do is start taking a lot of those objects that are already abstracted away and registering them with our dependency injection container. And now we could start injecting them into different objects that we need injected and removing dependencies from large static global files that are scattered throughout the platform. We can start extracting away system.web dependencies and web forms dependencies because those things will not be in .NET Core. Microsoft has taken a hard stance on certain things in .NET Framework that are not moving to .NET Core. And that happens to be one of them. So those things should slowly be moved away because we mentioned earlier, the abstraction doesn't care about the implementation. The implementation is an implementation of that contract. If inside that implementation it has web form stuff, it doesn't matter. As long as the interface has no web forms code in it, we can use that in both .NET Core and .NET Framework. And that's the magic sauce to dependency injection, how we get to .NET Core. A lot of the details there, they're yet to be decided, but that's kind of the 10,000-foot view of how we get there.
So there is some secret sauce in the magic sauce, or
no? It's just the stuff needs to be decided on how some of that gets actually implemented, because there's a lot of stuff in the platform that is not ready for dependency injection.
With what you've described and saying that this sets the stage so that then, piece at a time, different factory pattern or factory type items can be reviewed, and then they can slowly but surely, piece at a time, be modeled differently so then they can not only take advantage of this, they can be more ready to be replaced later.
Yes. So
the question was going to be, what's an example of something that you look at as a low-hanging fruit item to say, hey, when I want to make a first example of it, I might do it on this, or this might be a place to go?
So this is a discussion that needs to happen more at the technology advisory group on where some of those things are.
Yeah.
But it's not just the factory pattern that's used throughout the platform. There's these global libraries that we have, like global.com is a big one that's used all over the place. And that one could be separated out into multiple interfaces for the different business areas. Like there could be a security section, for example, of the different areas of that static file. Because to get access to the globals, you can just it's a bunch of static properties. So you group those certain things into interfaces, you register that interface, and now you can just inject like an iSecurity interface anywhere you want in the code, and then you would access that stuff. So the idea is you would start, the globals would be the low-hanging fruit to start with. Though, okay, I have these 4 properties. They make sense to go into the iSecurity interface. Now I can create a concrete implementation of that. I could register it with my container as, let's say, a singleton, so it only has one instance ever, which is kind of the same thing that we're doing with the globals file. And then, once I register that with my container, me, Andrew, as module developer, can inject the iSecurity interface into any part of my module and have access to that directly without going through the static properties. And that's kind of how this all kind of comes together to really solve a lot of the problems.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to we're no longer depending on the concrete implementations. It's all about the abstractions and the interfaces. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Any other questions? No? Okay. So this is perfect time to do a code demo. Everyone wants to see how this works, right?
Yeah.
All right.
What's up?
So I have this little alpha website, 9.4, and we make sure that's running. Can everyone see my screen?
No. Yes.
Yes, I think so.
I'll tell you to quiet down in the back now. This guy was heckling me at DNN Summit. I don't believe him. Whenever I do my live stream on Twitch while I wait for this to load, I was like, "You guys hear me in the back?"
Is anybody here?
Or I tell people, ask people if they can see, because I always got to change the font size. All right, so we got an empty DNN website here. Let me log in, because we're going to install some modules too. I created this this sample project that anyone can go and use, and it has all of the major module patterns.
And
so,
this is running like a 9.4 release candidate?
Yeah, this is running an alpha build, a personal alpha build of 9.4. If you want to use this, it's on a GitHub sample project that I created, and I have the installer files there for people to use in their own personal sandboxes. So when you open up the solution, you're going to get something like this, where we have an MVC project, a SPA project, a Razor 3 project, and a WebForms project. And for the purposes of the sample, I made it pretty easy for anyone to come in here and just get going. So we're going to start with MVC. And so this is just a pretty simple hello world application. If I opened up our index view here, let me make this a little bigger. Actually, no, not going to do 100. Let me just update my font size to make it easier for everyone to see in the back. So I told you I do that every time. Font. Make it North 16. There we go. Can everyone see that in the back? All right, so this is a pretty simple MVC module. We pass in a hello world model, which has a message on it, and we return that to the screen, the controller for it. Looks like this. We allow anyone to access it, and our index just creates the hello world object, and we pass it in. So if I was to go and build this in release mode, it'll generate an installer for me. All right, it's built. And if I come over here, I can go and install the module. And we can see what it looks like. So at the root directory, there's going to be a modules_installers folder. That's where all the installers get dropped. And I'm just going to grab the MVC one. We're going to install it. Accept everything.
Could you go a little faster?
I'm trying to go as fast as I can here, because I'm not concerned about installing module. I'm concerned about dependency injection. All right, so while we wait for that to
know about installing.
Yeah, so while we wait for that to load, okay, so now I can add the module to the screen here. And we have our dependency injection sample MVC. Click on it. Wait for it to load. Loading. All right, hello world. We all know how to build hello world one. I hope we all do. If not, there's a blog for that somewhere. We do now. You can use it. You can use the sample code for hello world. So how do we get this to actually work? Let's start by building our interface. So the way I like to structure my code is I like to create a folder called services. Inside this folder, I'm going to create an interface. I'm going to create another folder called interfaces. This is where I put all my interfaces. So let's create a new class here. And I'm going to call it iMessageService. And instead of calling it a class, question.
Why I on there? Is that for inversion or
interface?
Interface.
Okay.
It's a standard for interfaces. You put an I in front of it. And then this defines a contract. So you can't write code in here that's a class. You can only define contract stuff. So you're not going to see a constructor in here. You're not going to see method definitions in here. For those people heckling me about C#8 already, ignore them, because you can in C#8. But for the most part, you're not supposed to put any type of definitions in your interface. It just defines your methods and your properties. So I'm going to create a method in here called getMessage. And it's just, all it says is anything that is iMessageService has a method on it called getString or getMessage. Don't care about anything else on it. It could have 100 other methods on it, but all the interface cares about is getMessage, and that's our abstraction. So let's create an implementation of this. So I'm going to call it message service with no I in front of it, because this is our concrete implementation. And it's going to inherit from iMessageService. Make sure to use the correct namespace. I'll implement my interface. So now I can write the concrete implementation of the iMessage service interface. And you might have, let's say you're doing some heavy database lifting. You might call into the database, do some reads, do some writes, and then return some data. You might call into an Azure function, let's say, do your heavy lifting there. For our purposes, I'm just going to say, hello from Dependency Injection World. Simple enough. So the message will be different when we go to rebuild this module. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to add it to the home control. So if I created a variable in here, called it iMessage service, I'm going to use my namespace, and we'll call it message service, a little underscore in front of it. And then let me create my constructor, home controller, message service. We pass in the message service here. Now I just set my message service, my instant message service, which is line 14 here. This is our local instance of the message service to be used in the home controller. The message service here is our injected message service. Its scoping is only within the home controller, the constructor here of the home controller. So I need to set it equal to our instance of the home controller. So we just set underscore message service equals to message service. Now I can update this code down here to say message service dot get message. No semicolon there because we're in the object initializer. So I want to stop here for a second and highlight a couple things. If our message service ever changes, the implementation ever changes, this code will never change. So let's think about it. This code will never change regardless of the implementation of iMessage service. It will always be exactly the same because this code is only dependent on the contract. And that's why dependency injection is so important. Because if I was to update it to be, or my example is be a cloud message service, well, now this code never changes. Question?
I mean, unless you were to change the name of that and get messages.
If the contract changes, yes, then this code would change. But as long as your new implementation implements the same contract of iMessage service,
you wouldn't have to change anything.
You wouldn't have to change anything. That's correct.
It would be that you messed up if you changed the name of it.
Exactly.
You do the back end to make sure.
But this is not going to work right now because, as you were asking, how does all this stuff actually work? Magic. Well, we need to register our message service. So in DNN 9.4, there's going to be a new NuGet available. If you download my sample code, it will be available for you in the local NuGet feed. You'll just have to make sure you reference it. It's probably hard to see on the monitor and screen share, but there is a folder called NuGet feed at the root directory where I have put some of these local NuGets that you can go and download. So I've already gone ahead and downloaded this for our sample code here, but it's going to be called .NET nuke.dependency injection. And this library is using the same dependency injection container that's used in ASP.NET Core, the exact same one. If you look at the dependencies here, it's probably hard to see on the screen here, but Microsoft.extensions.dependency injection version 2.1.1. And that's the exact same thing that's used in .NET or ASP.NET Core. So once you have that NuGet included, I can come here and add a new file. I'm going to call it startup. If you've done any .NET Core development, this is going to sound really familiar. So this is where we're going to register our iMessage service to map to the message service. We do that by including the iDNN startup interface. This is a new interface that's going to be included in the dependency injection library in DNN 9.4. So once I include this and I implement our interface, we have this configure services method here. It passes in an iService collection. The iService collection, the iService collection is it's not how we resolve, it's not our container we resolve them, it's our configuration container. It provides the contracts for us to register our items into our containers. So if I type in services There's a couple different ways to do it. I can add it as a singleton, which means there's always one instance of it ever. I can add it as transient or scope. These are different lifetime managers for our container. Differences between, do you generate a new instance every time you resolve it? A new instance per request, or only one new instance ever, which would be singleton. I'm just going to do add scope. And we, using generics, I could say iMessage service, which is and what we want to inject, and then message service. And if I just add my using statements for this. So now what this is saying is, whenever we see iMessage service in the constructor, we're going to try and create an instance of message service. If message service has its own series of dependencies, we'll try to create the necessary, we'll try and inject the interfaces for that as well. So as long as your top level is registered with the container, it's going to keep trying to resolve everything in the constructor all the way down the stack until there's nothing left. That's why once you get the dependency injection working as high up, or as low up, as low as you can, depending which way you're looking at the stack. I always look at it opposite for some reason. So the controller is registered in our container. And that's code that is already taken care of as part of the platform registration code. They actually, if you look at the new platform code, there's a startup code in the MVC library that does this exact same thing, that registers all of your controllers for you. But not about how it was implemented, how do we use it. So now we have successfully registered our iMessage service to map to message service. So in the controller over here, when it tries to resolve our home controller, it's going to inject the message service, but our class is only concerned about iMessage service. So we're going to have access to the methods there, and then it's going to get the message and return it to the screen. So I've done no other changes here. I'm going to update our version number for our module, so I don't need to uninstall. So we're just going to increment it by 1. Save that. Save all, make sure everything's saved. I'm going to rebuild. It's the build succeeded. I'm going to come over here and we're going to install our module. Install. Now we have our 002 open. And I'm going to quickly go through this.
Could you do that a little faster?
I'm doing it as fast as I can. I don't have a script for it. All right, so now I'm going to reload this page. It's going to automatically inject the iMessage service into our controller and then display the different string that's going to say, hello from the dependency injection world. What? And as with any module installation, it takes a second for the cache to rebuild, because we've got to reload all the assemblies. Hello from the dependency injection world. Woohoo! That's the oh wow moment.
Ooh,
Oh!
Should I get a sign that says applause, please? But again, our iMessage service is being passed in here. So we successfully have added dependency injection for MVC modules inside of DNN. And all you have to do to register it is create a startup file. I didn't do anything else. All I did was created a startup file, implement the IDNN startup. This is kind of the magic sauce. If you really want to know what's underneath the covers, anything in any library in DNN that implements IDNN startup will run at the application startup and allow you to register anything you want. So that means this works in every single module pattern. MVC is good and all, but I can go and take this exact same code. Do it again, do it again. Well, let's do it for web forms. And do I have enough time to go through every module pattern?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, then let's keep going. Is there any questions in the chat?
No questions, just comments.
Just comments. All right. So I have a simple spa module. So the home controller here just returns hello world. It's very similar to the MVC application, except the view, we open it up, I just jQueried and rendered a message onto the screen. So we have an H1, we use jQuery to render that message onto the screen. And you can replace this obviously with your Angular, your React, whatever you want to do. But this is, so we're looking at Web API controller. So our home controller here implements DNN API controller. So let's go install this module. And I'll come over here and we will install extensions. And we have our SPA 001. Go quicker. Touchscreen goes faster. All right. And I'll delete this module once the page reloads, and we'll see the Hello World module. And so we have this working across any library, any module library, any library in DNN, which means you can use this anywhere. It doesn't have to be just one part of your application code. If you write a third-party library and you wanted to use dependency injection in it, you can. So it doesn't just have to be a module. If you, let's say, have a development tooling that you use across all of your modules, you can create a library that you include as a NuGet that includes that startup file, and then you register all of your dependencies that well. So you can start doing injectable modules as part of your third-party libraries and components. So we have our SPA module. It looks the same on the screen, but we all just saw it loading the SPA module here. Magic. So let's do the same thing that we just did. I'm going to create a services folder. And then I'm going to create an interfaces folder. And I'm going to create our interface. I'm going to go through this part a little bit faster because it's the same interface. And I like to type. I guess I could create a library to reference, but for the demo here, we're just going to do it all online. So we'll call it get message. It's our contract that we just did. And they tell me if I repeat this enough times, it'll sink in that we should be building abstractions. It's not concretions. So we'll just create our message service. Our message service is going to implement our I message service. Control dot, pull up the call sense here. Control dot again, implement. And we're going to say, hello from Web API Dependency Injection world with 3 exclamation points. Now I can just go back to our controller here, and we can inject it. So I'm going to create, again, a private variable, call it iMessageService, control dot, call underscore message service, and then my constructor, I'm just going to say iMessageService. I want that to be our injected message service. And we'll wire it up. So underscore message service equals message service. So we're saving our injected message service to underscore message service, which is our instance of iMessage service to be used in any functions that are in this controller. So instead of return hello world, I'm going to say return underscore message service dot get message. So all of our code is written, but now we need to write our registrations again. So I'm going to do the same thing again. Add new class. We're going to create a startup class. We're going to verify that this library includes the .NET Nuke dependency injection library. It's already included here. So that's good. I'm going to have this implement the DNN startup code. Implement interface. And now we have our services that get passed into the configure services method here, which, again, this code is all called at the DNN startup time, our application startup. So you don't need to worry anything with this. It just runs automatically when your application starts up. Was there a question on one?
That was Joe. Correct.
No question? Okay.
Hey, Joe.
So I'll say services dot, and we have our different lifetime managers, singleton, transient, scope. So we'll do transient, and I'll say I message service is mapped to message service. And the IntelliSense here will say, it says key service, comma, key implementation. So it really tells you the first one is your abstraction, the second one is your implementation. And I'll do control dot to pull up my IntelliSense here to quick tips. So I need to include my namespaces. Save. I'm going to save all, and that's it. So we've created our service, we've injected it into our controller, and then we started using it in our controller, and then we created our startup class that maps our abstraction to our concretion. And now I'm going to rebuild this. Again, we're building this in release mode. I'm going to rebuild. Oops, we need to make sure we increment the version number so we can install it.
You can just do a repair install.
No, I'm not adding problems to problems.
Cool.
All right, so now I'm going to come over here and install our module.
You got a question in the chat?
What's the question?
Says if you wanted to switch the implementation on release or test build, how would you go about it with DNN loading the startup code?
So the question is, I wanted to have it change the implementation based on a debug mode, a test mode, or production mode, right?
What it reads like.
Okay. So what you would have to do is you would have to go back to our startup file here. What I would do, there's a lot of different ways to do this. You can go and real easy and say, do a preprocessor directive and say if debug. This would be the easiest way to do it. And then you could say, else. And right now we're in release mode, so it's going to show us differently. So I can release mode, I want it to be singleton, let's say, and debug mode, I don't want it to be a singleton. And then we do end it. So this is the easiest way to do it. If you wanted to do it for different environments, you could have it read information out of your web config, out of the app settings, let's say.
Yeah.
And
get your machine key or something different.
Yeah, what I would do is I would create an app settings and environment variable, the property there, and then say, so flag, so say you had one that was for local, one for test, one for staging, one for pre-prod, one for production, and that way you can have, now I come from the enterprise world, and you would have all those different environments in enterprise. If you're a little bit smaller, you might have a staging and just production, and you would flag it, and then it would know to go down the different code paths. Maybe in your local environment, you don't want to be calling out to your cloud services. You want to just call into like a hard-coded mock service.
Yeah.
And that's again where dependency injection really strives is being able to inject a mock data store instead of your actual database call, and it really helps with development practices. So I'm just going to remove this code for now, but that's how I would go about accomplishing that. So we installed our module here. So if I reload this page,
Cached as a spa.
It's cached as a spa. Do I just reset IIS? I told you I was going to need help with this. What do I just reset IIS for that? That should do it.
No, you shouldn't have to. You should just do it.
Hard too late. I'm resetting IIS. Too late. I already did it. Oh, you guys can't see my PowerShell, can you? No.
Different screen here.
I didn't.
You did it so fast. It just
still not working.
Browser.
It's the DNA.
Browser.
So I go to the servers and do cache. This one here?
Yeah.
I cleared it.
Here, there, in the browsers.
I was assuming
Restock
browser.
Reboot your computer. Yeah, reboot the computer.
Going for that.
Rebecca for the win.
Are you sure you installed it? I don't remember you installing it.
I don't remember installing it either.
I
remember you rebuilding it, but I don't remember you installing it.
Yeah.
Nope, I never did install it. Still, it would help if you installed the module correctly.
When you said I installed it, I was like, man, he really was fast that time.
You wanted to tell them to do it faster.
He told me to do it faster. I didn't do it that time. Joke's on you guys. I knew the whole time.
Just wait until we do that.
See, that's why I versioned my module. Because if we did 001, we'd be like, oh, why isn't it working?
Then you end up with a gazillion versions.
There we go. Hello from Web API dependency. I spelled injection wrong, but injection world. So it's not the same string from the MVC module because it's coming from our message service that's implemented from our SPA module. So, all right. So dependency injection. You guys want to see it again? Yeah?
What's the next example version?
The next example version is Razor 3.
Oh,
Razor 3. Who developed Razor 3 modules still? Nobody? People still do. And it's important for Razor 3 developers to...
You would think that's the new one.
Razor 3 is also referred to in the DNN world as Razor Host. It's a module pattern that was built on top of the ASP.NET web page pattern. That's also called Razor 3. I've been trying to push the term Razor 3 in the GitHub issues to remove confusion between the old Razor and Razor pages, and CSHTML Razor, which is also different than Blazor. There's a lot of Azer names being tossed around, so it's very important to understand the differences. Razor 3 currently exists in the platform. I see your hand. One second. Do you have a question?
There's one in chat.
Okay, one second.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Razor 3 is the old implementation before MVC, actually I don't know if it came out before, but around the same time MVC came onto the scene of CSHTML files where I could bind a simple model to a view, where the Razor syntax you see in an MVC module is slightly different, which is also different than what's happening in Razor pages, which is another module pattern we're trying to implement. But there's a question in the chat, you said?
Yeah, Mike Smeltzer says, is this production ready in version 9.4 or more for testing proof of concept at this point?
This is production ready for 9.4. The
9.4 or is it
9.4?
When it releases. Yeah.
When 9.4 ships, this is production ready. Every single MVC module, every single Razor 3 module that is out there will be using dependency injection at 9.4 with performance improvements because it's no longer using reflection. This is something built right into the platform as a core utility, and it will be used by your website regardless if you're actually using it. Also, Web API controllers are also going to be using it by default. So if you have a Web API controller and you want to leverage it, you just start passing in your interfaces and your registry stuff.
You got a sweet in the chat.
Sweet.
So as a module developer who's put stuff out in the past, what advice can you give them for what they're looking to do first? Is there a bigger benefit if they approach one thing or another first with their existing modules?
What do you mean one thing, or what would be the one thing or the other?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example of a specific module, and then I can start thinking of things that they're doing within that module that then they need to start taking advantage of first.
Mm-hmm. So, and while we talk about this, I'm just going to install the Razor 3 module, the clean one first. So, what I would recommend to people is, you can even start doing this today, is start looking at what code your modules are leveraging. And if you can abstract that code. Yeah, so if you made, let's say, some type of list module, like in the Chris Hammond MVC template, creates a series of list items that you can add and stuff. So if you move that business logic and those rules that write to the database into an interface and you extract that away, you can start doing that today and be ready for this for 9.4. And then when you're ready to start using the libraries from 9.4, you would just, instead of creating a new instance of those objects, you would just inject your interfaces as the constructor. But there's not. I don't think there's something like necessary that you should be saying, well, you should do this first or that first. It's any code that exists in your, whether it's your controller, whether it's your web forms code behind, whether it's your Razor 3 module, any of those module patterns where you get first access to your business layer, that's not really your business layer. That's to be thought of as your orchestration layer. So at that point, I have my dependencies inject. I have a lot of modules I've come across. They just have everything there in the controller. That's it. Or in the code behind. If I can start figuring out what code doesn't need to be there and extracting that code out to interfaces, I can now be ready for any transition that comes in the future of DNN. Because now my module code is no longer dependent on the business rules. It's no longer tightly coupled. It's coupled to the interfaces and abstractions. And when I go to, let's say we're 2 years in the future. Razor Pages is implemented, DNN is ready for its first version of .NET Core. Don't quote me on that timeline. Do not quote me on that timeline.
All hypothetical.
Hypothetically, let's say it's 2 years in the future, and we have the first version of .NET Core DNN launched. And we're all excited, and we all got hundreds of modules that we need to migrate. But if we spent the time to migrate our code from the code behind from those controllers to being in a separate assembly that's all behind interfaces that we've injected into our modules, I can now take those same interfaces, inject them into the .NET Core version of DNN, and write minimal code to be up and running in a new pattern.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of this.
They don't have to retool everything. They've at least gotten it to the minimum so they can run under the new environment.
Yes. So my recommendation is take any code that you have in your code behind, any code that you have in your controller, and figure out what really needs to be there. Is it model binding and mapping code, or is it business rules that need to be behind an interface? And move that code and inject it, is my recommendation. Did that answer the question? All right, so let's install our Razor 3 module. Razor 3 is one of the different ones. It's Hello World. So let's look at what this module is doing. If we open it up, we have a views folder. Inside our views folder, this looks very similar to the MVC one. We have our index model, and our index model maps to a title that we display. Razor 3 doesn't have a controller. There's no controller. So what it does is it tries to instantiate any model that you pass into it. There's no base class to that. It's just whatever thing you want to pass into it. So in our case here, we're hard coding in hello world. So let's go and create our services. So I'm going to create a new folder, just like we did before, called services. And inside here, we're going to create another folder called interfaces. Create our class called iMessageService. And this is going to be an interface, not a class. So string get message. Remove unused usings. Let's go create our implementation of that. This time it's class. We'll call it message service. And we'll say message service. All right. So let's implement that, and we're going to say return hello from Razor 3 module with dependency injection. We're not going to say world this time. Different. We're different. I didn't spell injection right? Yes. Okay.
City, town, anything?
Okay. So now this is different than everything we've done so far. So now we're not dealing with controllers. This is just Razor 3 describes creating this model. For I mentioned, this is a deprecated module pattern, but if you're using it, this is why it's included. It's going to be removed in 11.x of DNN. So don't write any new code in this. Like I said enough. Do not write new code in Razor 3 module. Do not do that.
That's a great example to bring.
Do not use Razor 3 module.
How to do something you never do again in a new and again.
So today, are you going to use Razor 3 module?
Never have, never will.
Never will, all right? That's it. Everyone? No one uses Razor 3 module. But if you're already using it, if you already have,
someone's going to be built on it.
if you already have a large application built on Razor 3 modules, you can leverage dependency injection as a way to migrate your code off the module pattern and be prepared for the deprecation of the pattern. And this is how you would do it. So let's create our private iMessage service. Say underscore message service. Dustin, are you going to use Razor 3? No? Okay, good.
No, you can be sure of that.
What's Razor 3?
Exactly. What is Razor 3? But if you're already using it, so you just do it the same way that we've done everything else. I'm going to say, I'm going to create a constructor, message service. This code is no different than anything else.
What's so bad about it that they're going to get deprecated?
Oh.
You just said it's no different than anything else.
The way we use dependency injection is no different.
Okay, my bad.
So underscore message service equals message service. And then I'm just going to come down here and remove hello world and say underscore message service dot get message. This code is no longer tightly coupled to a hard-coded string. It's all contained within the message service. Startup. Dave's already doing the chant for the startup class. So startup They're very similar to how you would do your registrations in modern MVC applications, whether it's .NET Framework or .NET Core. Say DNN startup. I don't know if I included the answer yet. I got the NuGet already included, and I'm going to implement this. So, Dave, what do I write here?
Code.
Code? We'll say services.
Add.
We'll say scope this time. Message service.
Message service.
Map to message service. So let's include our using statements at the top there.
Why add scoped?
Scoped, transient, there are different types of lifetime managers. And Singleton is another lifetime manager. I always forget which one is which. You gotta look it up. I believe scoped is based on the request, so it generates a new item for each request, and transient does it a new object every time. So it, but you just go on the docs and look up the lifetime managers, and it's the exact same docs for .NET Core. But this is not going to work. Why? This is not going to work. 100% will not work. Your application will crash right now if we try running.
You haven't registered your thing yet?
What thing?
Service, your, wait a minute, your IDNN startup?
IDNN startup's right here.
Okay.
When you
Your
search
startup CS? What file are we in?
We're in the startup CS file right now.
Let's talk about the
You got a green squiggly? I don't know.
Okay, so the reason why is I mentioned earlier that our model here, our index model, doesn't have a base class, okay? So there's no contract that we could wire up in the platform code that we can guarantee is always a model in Razor 3. So if you're writing any type of Razor 3 application, you need to manually register any of your models that you want dependency injection to work. So I'm just going to do services. I'm going to say add scope as well, and I'm going to say index model.
Oh. Okay.
So this shows another way to register stuff. So let's say you don't have an interface and you really just want to try and inject something. You can just register it as it is, and that will also work. So now what's going to happen when DNN tries to create an instance of index model, it's going to know that it's going to try and create it through the container first. And since it's included on the container, it's going to inject the iMessage service into the index model, and that's how we do dependency injection for the Razor 3 module. So now, in the index model itself, this will properly get injected, and everything will work. So let's go and build. Increment our version number first. And let's go and build our module. Okay, module is built. And we will say extensions, install. I'm going as fast as I can. Razor 3. Next. Is that fast? Did I do good?
I don't know, I didn't see it.
All right, so if we reload this page, dependency injection should be working. Fingers crossed. I don't know. Spa really threw me for a loop because I didn't install it. Hello from Razor 3 module with dependency injection. So that's how you leverage dependency injection in Razor 3, which is slightly different than MVC and SPA.
Web forms.
So web forms. Web forms, our last module pattern. Dave is very excited here. You guys can see on the camera, he's got a big smile here. So in web forms, things are different. And I have a blog that documents each module pattern that you can reference when you go to do this code, which I believe someone will have in the show notes. So in web forms, let's go and take a look at our module. So we have something called an ASP literal, called it content literal. We access that in our code behind. So in our code behind here.
Oh, I missed the question.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Back on the Razor 3 module, I think Daniel was mentioning what it needed to be before the other line. I think he was talking about adding the index model or registering the index model.
Doesn't matter.
After, so yeah.
You can do it in any direction. So you can register all of your models first and then all of your interfaces. It doesn't matter which order it is, because what's going to happen is when you try to register, it's going to look at the parameters of the constructor and then resolve from there. So you can have any type of order that you want.
I'm sorry.
I'm intrigued. What's going on?
It's a grease collection vehicle.
Oh.
And they're having a party getting greasy.
They're crazy. Sorry,
no.
back to you.
Sorry.
We're distracting you with what's on the street.
That's the problem with having an office on a main street, yeah. With giant windows in the front. That you get dark.
So, web forms modules. I am not a web forms module guru at all. Mitch Sellers gave me a sample project that I worked off for this.
Hey, all right.
But, so, the page load happens, I assume, when the page loads. It's been a long time since I really did web forms development. And so we're just going to go into our content literal and update the text to being hello world. So let's go and add dependency injection for web forms. What's that?
Capital L load.
It's fine. It works. Okay.
Oh.
That's why screen squiggly.
It works.
What?
Submit a pull request.
I will.
Right.
All right. So we're creating a services folder, and we're going to create an interfaces folder just like we did. So this seems all very familiar, and what you could do is you could create another library that be shared across your different modules. So I'm going to go iMessage service, interface, so string get message. And we're going to create our implementation of that under the services folder here. Class, call it message service. So that implement iMessage service. Add our using, add our implementation. So we're going to have our web forms module return hello from web forms dependency injection world. Emoji.
What?
Oh. What? Oh, look at you.
Yeah.
Oh.
What was that character?
What?
That's supported now in Visual Studio.
Emoji.
Yeah, I mean, but like, yeah, where are the emoji keys on your keyboard?
Windows dot.
Yeah.
I use Windows dot. I don't know where the key is. I hit Windows dot and it pops up.
Oh.
We'll throw a ship in there as well.
What?
So cool. Anyway. I just blew everyone's mind. No one cares.
Yeah, we're derailed now. Is this going to show up? What am I going to see in this thing?
I have no idea. I actually haven't tested that. I don't know what will show up.
Well, then
Yeah,
sure.
probably the stuff
Let's find out. Let's go.
Slightly smiling face type
So
thing.
I'm going to change our order slightly, and we're going to create our startup file first. Because web forms is very different. So I created my startup file. It's going to implement the DNN startup. Didn't work because I didn't include the nugget in the NuGet.
Yes.
So we'll go to Manage NuGet Packages, Dependency Injection, not included. Let's install it. So remember, it's .NET Nuke.Dependency Injection. It's a new NuGet that's going to be available on 9.4. So we go back to my startup code. And I say DNN startup. There we go. Found it. We implement our interface. So we're going to say services dot add scope. Message service and message service. Add our using statements. So all this code works. And so all of our containers registered right now, right? So we go back to our code behind in our view. We're going to create an instance of iMessage service. And we're going to say underscore message service, create our constructor. Okay, this is very different. This is very, very, very different. Okay. Dependency injection works for web form modules, but does not support constructor injection. There is no constructor injection for web forms modules. And the reason why there is no constructor injection is because there would be a performance hit to all web forms modules, which we were not willing to add because the majority of modules in the ecosystem are built on the web forms technology. So to prevent slowing down and adding that performance hit, we decided not to implement constructor injection for web forms because we want you to build on the newer platform. But you can still get dependency injection.
You just don't have the constructor and you put it all right there.
So the way that you would resolve your instances or resolve your items in your container is slightly different. So I'll say message service equals dependency provider. This is new. This is new in 9.4. This is going to be included on all the base classes that you would be using in a web forms module. And I would say get service. Message service. And I'm listing my using statement, so I'm going to go up here and say using Microsoft.extensions.dependency injection, and that will resolve. So the dependency provider is an implementation of the iService provider, and this is the container. This is the dependency injection container, and it is for web forms modules. It is included in the base classes that you would be using. So the portal module base, there's the settings module base, the authentication config base, the authentication login base, and the authentication logoff base. All have access to this. And you would just use the dependency provider. So this is something called the service locator pattern. It's commonly referred to as an anti-pattern across in the dependency injection world and should not be used at all costs. But we are using it here as a workaround as web forms does not come with the .NET Core. It gives you a utility to still use dependency injection in a web forms module as you migrate to newer and more modern module types and best practices.
And so it might not be out the gate as beneficial as some of the other ones, but it's not worse than what exists today, and it gets you that ability to step over.
What I would recommend to people is use the service locator pattern like constructor injection. So create a default constructor like we have up here on the screen. So create a default constructor like we have up there on the screen. Have all your dependencies wired up immediately with using the service locator pattern for the dependency provider.getService. And that way, when you move your code over to something that supports constructor injection, like a web API module, like an MVC module, you can then just update this to use constructor injection and nothing changes. A common pitfall is to use the service locator pattern in line, which is no different than using a factory, and that's why it's referred to as an anti-pattern. But that's why I recommend only use it in your default constructor. So we got our message service resolved, and now I just come over here and update our code to say message service dot get message. Now I will come over here. I will increment our version number to 2. Make sure that I save everything. Save. And I'll right click and say rebuild. Module is built. And let's go delete our Razor 3 module. Oh, we never actually installed the web forms module. That's okay. We skipped a step. You guys don't need to see that.
We trusted words.
So on the web forms 1, version 2, accept. Done. We'll reload the page and we'll add the module to the page. And we'll have dependency injection working for our web forms module. Just wait for the page to reload. Any questions in the chat?
Would you mind, once it loads, I want to see the view again.
Yep. So web forms modules. Oh look, emojis work.
I think there must be ASCII characters. So.
Let me zoom in here.
Let's inspect those.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's kind of cool. That derail us.
The ship looked different here than it did in Visual Studio. So
Instead of that circle.
let's inspect it.
This is what we're really interested in.
We're really interested
Care about your injection stuff. It's emoji. So it's showing the emojis from Chrome as opposed to the Windows emojis that we saw in the editor. So it's slightly different for adding different ones.
Consistent library across applications?
I think it's actually including that. I don't know what. I
derailed
can't
it.
explain that.
So, Dave, you're going to do some research on emojis, and you're going to do a presentation next month on that?
No, don't include other unrelated things that will blow people's mind.
Yeah.
I've learned my lesson not to use emojis. And
Okay, so we're kind of
Would you mind showing that to you, though?
yeah we're nearing the end of our time, and I want to get in two things as we start to wrap up. David's view here first.
so this is a view code for the left one.
Code behind, sorry.
The code behind. Yeah. Be more specific. Code behind. Here we go.
Okay, yeah.
So the magic sauce here is, instead of doing constructor injection, we use a service locator pattern by dependency provider .get service, and then we specify our interface to resolve it.
I just figured out what he was doing.
Hmm?
He wanted to see it because he was getting ready to do a pull request.
I already did the pull request.
You already did?
Yeah.
Capitalizing the L.
No, I couldn't
and
remember
facing
what dependency provider. I couldn't remember what it was called.
So the dependency provider is on the base class, so if we went through the definition of it, this is now in the .NET Nuke library for modules. It's right here for us to use. So you don't have time to rewatch the video here. Go on my blog. I have every single one of these workflows documented with code samples. So if you go to andrewhoefling.com and scroll down, we'll go to the link here. We have an original article that I wrote about dependency injection.
one article for each example.
And then we have
Gotcha.
one article for each example.
Nice.
So if you're an MVC developer, you can come here and look at it. Each article is going to have links to everything else. I haven't updated them all yet, so it's just now they've all been released, but you'll be able to navigate between them very easily. And it has the exact same code here. And if this isn't enough to get you going, if you go and head over to GitHub, head over to my GitHub. And you go to repositories, and this is linked on my blog as well. There is dependency injection samples. And there's a pull request. I'm looking at this pull request. Look at that. Who wrote this pull request? Somebody was not paying attention during my demo. I can't. But the other thing that is set up with the samples project is there are tags for clean builds of the MVC and completed versions of the dependency injection. So you'll have a starting point for each project. Not all of that is completely set up right now, but it's going to be set up by the weekend, and it's referenced in all the blogs. So you have starter code and completed code to really sink your teeth into and understand this. This is what's available in 9.4. It is production-ready code that you can go and start getting yourself prepared for whatever the future might hold in DNN.
So, do we have any questions in the chat that we haven't gone through yet? So you were giving your wrap-up, and that was the question I was going to ask you, was main takeaways for people who are existing module developers knowing that this is coming. Your takeaway would be get ready and start going through your code and utilizing this where you can. You have this time now.
Dependency injection is it's recommended amongst architects, whether you're working in .NET technologies, whether you're working in Java, whether you're working in most, if not all, object-oriented programming languages today recommend using some form of dependency injection. They even recommend it in some front-end frameworks with TypeScript. So it is a best practice. If you have code that runs 10,000 lines in your code behind, you really need to start looking at how you can extract segments of that code into interfaces and inject them into your code behind or your controller. You need to decouple your different layers. Like we were talking earlier, Class A depends on Class B, but if Class A depends on interface B, now we can have different types of implementations. Big takeaway there is when we migrate away from webforms to system.web, any code that's dependent on that will have to change. If you write your code in a way that the abstraction is independent of system.web, you are in great shape for whatever the future holds.
Excellent. Well, let's have a round of applause for Andrew for doing not only an excellent presentation, but a lot of upfront work for getting what people are going to be using here over the next couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Can I?
Keep everything. Seriously, everything. The core the community modules Daniel Veladas has been working on would be really good. There's a lot of code behind items. Moving that code into interfaces and abstracting it away.
Modules he develops, he doesn't know what they've got, what kind of dependency.
Well, so thank you, Andrew, for presenting and doing this heavy lifting to get DNN moving one more step in this direction. We are reaching here at the end of our time. Those of us who are here in the Mooresville area are going to head out to dinner and drinks and connecting with each other. So we'll carry on after we shut down here as we start to wrap up SoFri here for May. We should talk about the fact that June 20th is the next Southern Fried meeting. That's the third Thursday in every month, always. We should have some information back from DNN Connect to find out what's going on or what has gone on there. Some more information for DNN Summit at the time, and we'll have some new and fresh ideas on tap, and we look forward to joining you then. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.